Good day. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited for you to learn about our next guest, David Capece, the CEO of Sparxoo. He's an amazing entrepreneur that's running an incredible business and helping our community. That's our philosophy at Elevate Inc. We want to help our city. We want to ensure the ways that Tampa has swagger is known. And we want to also recognize when our clients do great work. On that note, we're pleased to announce that two of our clients, eCover Global and Gale Health, have both been selected as finalists for the Tampa Bay Chamber Small Business of the Year Award. If you don't know, this award is given to exceptional small businesses in our area to spotlight the great work they're doing, the jobs they provide to our community, and recognizing their philanthropic efforts. Gale Healthcare is a leader in healthcare technology, providing resources to using their smartphone application, pairing nurses with understaffed healthcare facilities to ensure no patient is lacking care because of facility and staff. They provide same-day pay for nurses, handle payroll, and provide notifications to facility managers on their shifts. They've been selected as a finalist for 51 to 250 employee in the Small Business of the Year category. eCover Global has been selected in the startup category. They are a HIPAA-compliant patient engagement application, started right here, and they are part of the Tampa Bay Wave. Again, congratulations to eCover Global and Gale Health for being selected as the Tampa Bay Chamber Small Business of the Year. Good day, Aakash Patel with Elevate Inc. This is season 1, episode 2 of our podcast, Elevate Inc. Today. And my guest today is my friend and founder of Sparxoo, David Capece. David, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Aakash.
David, a lot of people at home that are watching us today have heard of you and have seen the success of Sparxoo. But tell us a little bit about yourself personally, and then talk about how Sparxoo was founded.
Great, thanks Aakash. As you say, a lot of people will know me as CEO of Sparxoo, but going back to the beginning, I'm originally from Philadelphia. From there I went to college at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, and that's really where I had my first foray into work and business. So there I had my first internship with the Baltimore Orioles, and that internship was supposed to be in public relations, but it turned out that within a week or two I became a web developer for them at the age of 21. And so from there, I had two launches. One was into the world of sports, and one was into the world of digital. I then went up to New York, and during my 10 years up in New York, that included a long stint at ESPN. So at ESPN, I was head of marketing for ESPN.com, and I helped us relaunch fantasy sports. And I also, while I was in New York, worked at Interbrand, which is the world's largest branding agency. And then from there, of course, being in New York, in an amazing city, I also thought about, well, where might I want to go in the future? You know, as I thought about, well, you know, you could possibly buy a multi-million-dollar studio apartment, or maybe there's other things that are out there. So. Came down to Tampa Bay in 2010 and started Sparxoo, a digital agency. Coming down here to Tampa Bay, so exciting, and also one of the best decisions that I've ever made. From there, launched Sparxoo, and we've been up and running and won awards. We've been Inc. 5000, Fast 50, and then continue to innovate from there.
Now, a lot of people must think, wow, you came here in 2010. The world was different in Tampa in 2010, right? That was a decade ago. And you started a business. So number one, why Tampa in 2010 specifically, and then why launch then?
Yeah, great question, and you're right. Sitting here in 2020, it seems like an obvious choice that you might choose Tampa or Tampa Bay. But back in 2010, when my now husband and I moved down here and chose Tampa, our friends looked at us and wondered if we'd kind of gone a little crazy, and they thought that this might be the death of our career, or this might be us having to retire early, or just not get as far in life. But it turned out that really we joined Tampa at the perfect time. So going back to that decision, my now husband and I were together at the time and thinking about where we might want to move. So we made it into a game. We made a top 10 list of cities that we might want to move to. Ranked all those cities, and then said, let's get to know the cities that we hadn't been to. So we only had 9 on the list, and I knew that I wanted to come to vacation in Florida. So I said, let's put number 10 on the list as either Tampa or Jacksonville, because we had never been there.
Wow.
And so we flipped a coin, chose Tampa, and then came to each of the places that we hadn't been. love Tampa, re-ranked the top 5, put Tampa at number 5 out of 5 so we could come back again, then re-ranked the top 3, which were San Diego, Charlotte, and Tampa won.
Well, we're glad you're here, and in Elevating, we're always talking about helping our city and the reasons Tampa has swagger, and you're definitely a part of that with your business. Your unique business model. Talk about how, what it was in 2010, how you started, what your core services are, and then how you've expanded during this.
Yep. So from the beginning, we've always been a left brain, right brain agency. And what that means is we care about the brand and the story, and we're really good on the technical side of digital. And that formula has rung true from the beginning. So going back to our very first client was Habitat for Humanity International. So we worked side by side with the CMO out of Atlanta and worked with him to set their global brand positioning and also customize it for LATAM. And then from there, we also put together the playbook for digital way back in 2010. And that's been the same formula that we've used time and again with our clients. At the beginning, we didn't really have client base in Tampa, and it really took us 2-3 years before we started to win some clients in Tampa Bay. We thought that if we came with this message of digital in 2010, 2011, 2012 in Tampa Bay, everybody would be excited for the message of digital, but the time just wasn't quite here. If you recall back then, just coming out of the recession, which lasted longer in Tampa, the real estate downturn and all of that. So the world wasn't quite ready in Tampa for digital at that point. So we had to spend the first 2 or 3 years working outside of Tampa. And then eventually we had some breakthroughs. One of our big wins was 2013. We won our first project with Amelie, and they are still a client today. And from there, now we look back, and the majority of our clients are not only in Florida but also in Tampa Bay, and it's something we're really proud of to work locally with the community.
And talk about your growth. I mean, you mentioned Inc. 5000, and then of course the employee size and the structure of the team.
Yeah, so once we figured out that formula and also started to have some wins and case studies here locally, then it was off to the races in growth. So we did making 5,000 back-to-back in 2017, 2018, along with then Fast 50. And from there, we've continued to grow in new ways. So what we did in 2018 going to 2019 is we looked at where the market was heading and took 2 new initiatives that we started up. So one being Sparxoo Studios, which is our video production company. So we incubated that in 2019 and launched it officially November 11th, 2019. So just about coming up on a year. It has definitely been a wild ride with COVID in there. And then we also incubated and started up Crew, which is creative project management software.
And then this whole pandemic hit. What's that been like for you personally, professionally, with the business?
Yeah, so I don't think anybody was really ready for the pandemic. We started to see articles surface in January and February and just track them and also track the CDC. We tried to be very proactive and a step ahead. On phase 1 of the pandemic, it was really about the health and safety of our team as well as making sure that the company would be viable. We went remote on March 12th. And we gave notice on our lease on March 15th. We made a very aggressive early call that being remote would take longer than anybody expected. So when we gave notice and went remote, it changed the conversation and the equation for us. We committed 110% to being a remote team. And that really helped push us to be fully engaging and collaborative as a remote team. We also then went ahead and recognized that we were going to have some extra bandwidth, as many companies did. So in April, we started aggressively giving back to the community with our time. So we did a number of pro bono projects that total over $50,000, and those pro bono projects include for Equality Florida, for Feeding Tampa Bay, for the mayor, and we also did
the mayor of Tampa.
The mayor of Tampa, yes, Mayor Castor, and we also did some pro bono projects even for small businesses. So we found a number of restaurants, retailers that are just local small businesses that were in very difficult situations, and we gave of our time to help them with video, with social, with digital, just to kind of help them get by to keep the message moving for them.
Talk about your most favorite project that you've really enjoyed working on over these years.
Yeah. So, well, that is always a tough question because there are so many of those amazing projects. I would just say, in totality, that I'm very appreciative for a few of our relationships. So one of them being with Tech Data, the largest company here in Tampa Bay, at least, side by side with Publix. And I'm really appreciative that they've brought us on side by side as a partner to help them with many of their digital marketing initiatives, where we really bring more of the tools and the automation and the ROI to their initiatives. And then I'm also appreciative of our work with all of the nonprofits that we support as well.
Now, a lot of the folks watching today are entrepreneurs, David. You've had your ups and downs in business like every entrepreneur, and a lot of them, of course, have these challenges, and you've overcome many challenges in your business. But, do you have mentors that kind of helped you along the way, and how important has that been to your career?
Yeah, what a great question. And mentors are something that I would encourage for everyone. So in my career, I've had mentors in two flavors. So one, at ESPN, of course, being a big company with a lot of amazing leaders that you might be either reporting to or two steps away or something like that. I made my own mentor program. So I found those that were more advanced that I really looked up to, and I would every 6 months go to one of them and ask them to be my mentor, and I would just go through a monthly session with them for 6 months. So I rotated through a series of mentors like that.
So let's go back. So you just called an executive and said, "Hey, I want you to be my mentor." What was their reaction?
100%, they all accepted and were delighted. And if you're sitting there thinking about wanting a mentor, you're thinking, well, they're probably really busy. They probably have everybody, trying to vie for their time. But at the end of the day, they're like everybody else, and they want to help and give back. And you might be surprised that 100% of the time they all wanted to do it, and every one of them made every one of the meetings.
Wow.
So.
And now for books, I mean, you got to read, right? You got to read to improve yourself. Are there some books that you would encourage entrepreneurs to make sure you read, and some of those things have you implemented into your business?
Yeah, and I'll get to the books in 1 second. I do want to share the second part of the mentoring piece, which is now on an ongoing basis. What I recognize is that my situations and my challenges are dynamically changing as a business leader. Not just because of COVID, they're dynamically changing as the business grows in a certain direction, or as there's new shifts. And so what I've done now instead is kind of come up with my kitchen sink, so to speak, of the folks that are my routine go-tos, where I might ask them, hey, do you mind taking an hour with me over the next couple of weeks? I would love to talk to you about this topic. And so I bring a topic to them and ask them for advice. And so I'm getting mentorship even more frequently now than at ESPN, but it's very targeted and very specific. Going on to the books, same principle, which is that as an entrepreneur or CEO, you're going to have things that you want to work on, whether it's your leadership, your processes, your operations, your hiring, and then there's a book for every one of those things. For me, the books that I think have been most impactful recently are Traction, which we then moved on, and we do EOS as a company, and that's probably the book that has been the most transformational in terms of how we've proceeded as a company.
And digital marketing has been definitely a game-changing industry, as you can imagine. The next 5 years, what does the industry look like? What does Sparxoo look like? What do you think about our community? What do we look like?
Yeah. So the thing about how we started Sparxoo was the left brain and right brain coming together with both the story and the creativity, but then the digital and technical know-how. And that formula still works today. So I'll share trends on each side. On the storytelling side, storytelling just as important, more important than ever, but how you're telling the story is different, especially now in a highly digital world. What we're finding is that video, even podcasts, things like this, those are the areas that are exploding because you need to have your story and your conversation told in a more authentic way, a more real-time way, a more ongoing way. So for us, the video production side of things has just been exploding to the upside. In terms of the technical elements, again, those technical elements have been important for the last 10 years, will be important for the next 5 or 10 years. Web and mobile development was something that we were really strong at early. Since then, we become a HubSpot partner. We also see automation just going through the roof. There's so much complexity to digital marketing that you can't possibly do it all hands-on. You have to have automation and tools. So I would just encourage everybody to increase their focus and attention on automation and tools. And again, we're HubSpot, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn. These are all the platforms and the tools that we're using, but there's many more for each specific company.
Now, you talked about the pro bono projects you've done for the city of Tampa and other organizations in the community. We at Elevate Inc. are always talking about helping our city and making our community better. What kind of other organizations are you involved in, especially specifically, board level, and then other organizations that you give to personally and professionally?
Yeah, so on that front, maybe I'll start personal, which is the leadership programs. I'm so thankful and grateful to have been a part of several leadership organizations. So Leadership Tampa, Leadership Tampa Bay, and Leadership Florida. And those are organizations that I have stayed involved with either on a committee level or a board level. That's something that will be important to me forever, and I hope to encourage many others to go through those programs. Then from a community and business perspective, we have some companies that we give back to, and we have some companies that we do work with and on a retainer, but we are giving more than the retainer to them. But across the board, those organizations really have to do with companies that are innovating and making our city better. So Tampa Bay Wave is a relationship that has been really strong to us. University of Tampa has been an important relationship for us. And then for me, I'm also currently on the board of AMA, American Marketing Association. That's something that I saw as an opportunity given the circumstances currently. I've chaired up programming. I happen to have a lot of really great relationships and have been able to bring that to the fore for great programming for AMA Tampa Bay so that we can give back and ensure that we're sharing best practices, inspiration for marketers across the community.
Now, we were talking earlier, you're a father of 2 young kids, right?
Yep.
And what are their ages?
Yep, so we've got 2-year-old twins, Luke and Gia.
And, we always talk about entrepreneurs, and you work a lot, and work-life balance with your family and professionalism and all these organizations and events. I mean, how has that changed, and how do you balance everything?
Yeah, so of course when you have a family and the birth of your first child, in our case too, at the same time, that changes everything, and you recognize that really family is first, and it's something that of course I've preached in principle in the past, but I'd never really experienced it until I had my own, and so it's definitely been, at the forefront of how do I get to that work-life balance. I have forced myself into a really good schedule, which in our world, especially for creatives, can be very difficult because the more creative you are, the more likely you are to be working at odd hours, similar for entrepreneurs. So I've had to force myself into some really strong routines so that I do have that time with the kids. It also turns out that working from home has actually helped the bonds with the children as well, because I do see them throughout the day, even if it's just for a few minutes here or there, and so they really appreciate that additional presence.
Now, a lot of folks did go remote during this pandemic, and a lot of them are struggling with the word culture. How does Sparxoo's culture, now that you're remote, how has it changed? Has it become more challenging? Is it more exciting? Because you have to work on that as a CEO, and I'm sure you get questions a lot from your team members.
This is one of the greatest concerns that I had in March and April. So historically, Sparxoo has been a collaborative culture. In fact, collaboration is the one word most associated with Sparxoo from the inside. And we have a set of values that are great. So embrace the adventure, unite in DYFJ, stay curious, et cetera, et cetera. So we have these values, we have this sense of collaboration, and then boom, the team is fully remote without any notice. The first thing that we did was we instituted that all of our meetings virtually would have to include video. So we included, at least the FaceTime and the personal aspect.
So you're using outlets like Zoom and Microsoft Teams kind of thing.
Exactly, yep. And when we did that and made some other changes to our schedule, so we instituted some additional structure in terms of our weekly all-team meeting that we do Monday at 9 a.m., in terms of some of our stand-ups. So we do daily stand-ups across each of our individual teams, 15 minutes a day. By instituting all this structure, what has happened is the team has been highly engaged, highly effective, highly collaborative. We have not lost the beat in collaboration. So as we then kind of look at 2021 and what does that hold, we think we will probably go back to an office of some sort, but we're going to go back differently. We'll probably go back with a hybrid approach where we have the ability for team members to be in person all the time if they'd like, but where we also really only have specific collaborative zones, maybe one or a few days a week or a few times a week, where we are highly encouraging team members to come in person.
Now, I know during COVID-19, you talked about some of the changes, but I think sometimes you weren't sure if you were going to have employees that weren't based here, but now talk about that experience.
So that's another thing that happened once we went all remote, which is when we had some open positions, we ran an experiment. We posted the positions as temporarily remote due to COVID-19 and opened those positions to hire from anywhere. And what happened is the majority of the resumes coming in were not from Tampa Bay. They were coming from everywhere in the USA. And we just started to interview blind to geography. And our hope was that we would ultimately find team members that would either be in Tampa Bay or want to relocate to Tampa Bay. But we found a few amazing talents elsewhere, in Seattle, in Miami, other places. So we have made some hires of team members that are not in Tampa Bay and don't intend to move to Tampa Bay. And we've all been transparent and okay with that. So our culture going forward is going to accommodate fully remote for some team members.
That's great, David. And a lot of folks at home got to know you today personally, and now, of course, they know more about Sparxoo professionally. They already knew how great Sparxoo was. I always talk about the Tampa Bay Chamber. Do you want to touch on that project that you did last year?
Yeah, so we led the rebrand for the Tampa Bay Chamber, which went live in December 2019, and what an amazing project. So previously, the Tampa Bay Chamber was the Greater Tampa, GTCC.
Yeah,
Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce.
Right,
Yeah,
yep.
Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce, and it's a mouthful, which is why I can never remember it. And so it's an interesting thing. When I moved here to Tampa Bay in 2010, the first thing I did was join the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. And when I joined, I said, "What on earth is this Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce? Is there not just a Tampa or Tampa Bay Chamber?" So coming full circle, 9 years later, we had the opportunity to rebrand them the Tampa Bay Chamber. Of course, it was a rebrand of name, but also of their brand identity and what they stood for, their messaging. And it was really meant to be symbolic of the chamber taking an ever greater role as a champion for this region in collaboration with many of the other great chambers in this region as well. So we had the great fortune of working with the executives, the board of the Tampa Bay Chamber, as well as hearing from constituents around the community. The relaunch happened December 2019. It was by and large viewed as a big success, and a lot of great compliments on the new logo and the new assets. And one of the interesting things is, as we closed out 2019 and started 2020, we said, well, we've accomplished something really great and big here in Tampa Bay. Let's look forward to 2020 and all that will come. And so the great irony is then just 90 days later, COVID-19 came, so we had to make some pivots from there.
Is there anything you want to tell the viewers at home that we didn't touch on, anything about you or your business? And I know a lot of folks are going to contact you. We'll put your contact information on our screen here when we launch. But please share anything else that we didn't ask.
Yeah, there's two messages that I can give out there. One is around positivity and the other is around relationships. So for all the entrepreneurs and really everyone out there, there are so many challenges and obstacles that we all face in life, in business, in our projects. And one thing that I've just found is the positivity and the resilience to overcome whatever the challenge might be. So fight through it and be positive. The second piece around relationships. Relationships relationships really make the world go round, and the relationships that I built over my now 45 years are the relationships that enable me to be, continuing to move forward as a leader in Tampa Bay and as a leader of a company that is growing.
Well, David, great message today. I've learned so much, and I'm really appreciative of all you've done for the community and Sparxoo itself. And we're so excited to work with you at Elevate Inc. And we'll definitely take the advice. I'm going to go start asking people to be my mentor. No kidding. But thanks again, David, for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Aakash, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. This is Aakash Patel with Elevate Inc. This was episode 2, season 1. And we had David Capece with Sparxoo. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.